What if the greatest thing your dog has been asking from you has never been food, toys, or longer walks? What if it has been something so quiet you've been hearing it every day without ever knowing?
Picture an ordinary evening. The dishes are finally done. The television is still playing somewhere in the background, though no one is really listening anymore. You reach down, run your hand over your dog's head for a few seconds, smile without thinking, and then stand up to finish one last chore. Your dog doesn't bark. They don't paw at your leg. They don't bring you a toy. They simply watch you walk away. It's such a familiar moment that most of us never stop to wonder why it stays with us. Yet there is something about that silent gaze that feels almost impossible to explain. It's as if your dog knows something your heart recognizes before your mind can put it into words. We've been taught to measure good dog ownership by visible things: a full food bowl, daily walks, comfortable beds, regular vet visits, favorite treats tucked away in the kitchen cabinet. Those things matter. They always will. But what if the needs that shape your dog's emotional world are the ones no shopping list can satisfy? What if the most meaningful gifts you can give are completely invisible? Perhaps that quiet look isn't empty at all. Perhaps it's a conversation, not spoken with words, but with trust. And trust has always spoken softly. There is an old belief that God sometimes teaches us through the smallest, gentlest parts of creation, not through grand miracles that shake the earth, but through quiet companions who patiently reveal truths we were too busy to notice. If that's true, then maybe dogs were never placed in our lives simply to receive our love. Maybe they came here to teach us how love actually feels. Not hurried, not distracted, not earned, simply offered. Most loving owners spend years trying to give their dogs everything they need. Yet many still carry a quiet question they rarely say out loud. Am I doing enough? If you've ever wondered that yourself, you're not alone. The beautiful truth is that your dog isn't keeping score the way people do. They aren't counting expensive toys or perfect routines. They are experiencing something far less obvious and far more profound. Over the next few minutes, we're going to uncover 6 silent needs that shape your dog's emotional life. Needs supported by what we've learned about canine behavior, but also reflected in something every devoted owner has felt at least once. That strange moment when your dog seems to understand you before anyone else does. The feeling that they somehow know when your heart is heavy, even when you've said nothing at all. Because sometimes the most important conversations between two souls happen without a single word being spoken. Sometimes the deepest love is hidden inside the quietest moments. If you're still listening, there's a good chance this question has already found its way into your heart. Have I really been giving my dog what they need? Not just what they enjoy, not just what keeps them healthy, but what helps them feel deeply safe, understood, and emotionally connected. That's what this journey is about. We're going to explore 6 quiet needs that shape your dog's inner world. Needs that often go unnoticed because they don't appear on any checklist for responsible ownership. They aren't sold in pet stores. They don't arrive in delivery boxes. and yet they may be the very things your dog hopes for every single day. This isn't a list of training tricks or productivity hacks for dog owners. It's an invitation to see your companion through a different lens, a more patient one, a more compassionate one, perhaps even a more spiritual one. Because the most meaningful relationship in your home may be speaking a language you've never been taught to hear. If you've ever left for work and caught your dog watching from the window until your car disappeared, you probably know the feeling I'm talking about. You tell yourself they'll be fine. You remind yourself you're doing this for them, too. Their food, their home, their care. All of it comes from the life you're working so hard to build. And still, somewhere beneath the logic, a small voice whispers, I hope they know how much I love them. Maybe you've wondered whether they spend the day feeling lonely. Maybe you've replayed the mornings when you rushed out without saying goodbye because you were already running late. Maybe you've worried that one day, after they're gone, you'll suddenly understand 100 little things you wish you had noticed while they were still beside you. Those thoughts don't make you a bad owner. They make you someone who loves deeply. The truth is, dogs don't expect perfect people. They simply hope for genuine connection. Perhaps that's one of the quiet miracles God placed inside them. They have a remarkable way of pulling us away from constant urgency and back into the present moment. While we're planning tomorrow or replaying yesterday, they're patiently waiting for us to notice what's happening right now. Maybe God never intended dogs to make our schedules fuller. Maybe He placed them in our lives to make our hearts slower. To remind us that love isn't measured by how much we accomplish in a day, but by how completely we're willing to be present for another living soul. Your dog isn't counting your mistakes. They're counting your moments together. The first of those moments begins with something that many people mistake for a simple habit: a walk. Most of us think a walk is about movement, exercise, burning energy before dinner, stretching their legs after spending hours indoors. But to your dog, the walk begins long before the first step. It begins with a story, not one written with words, but with scent. Imagine trying to read a beautiful novel while someone closes the book after every sentence. That's surprisingly close to what many dogs experience every day. When your dog lowers their nose toward the ground, they aren't just smelling dirt or grass. They're reading. A tree isn't simply a tree. It's a bulletin board filled with messages from other dogs who passed hours earlier. A patch of grass becomes yesterday's conversation. A fire hydrant holds news from strangers they'll never meet. Every scent answers invisible questions. Who was here? Were they frightened? Were they healthy? Were they young or old? Did they travel alone? Their extraordinary sense of smell allows them to experience a world that remains completely hidden from us. While we depend mostly on our eyes, dogs understand life primarily through their noses. Scientists studying canine enrichment have repeatedly found that giving dogs opportunities to use their sense of smell doesn't simply entertain them. Activities centered on scent exploration can improve their emotional outlook and encourage more optimistic behavior. In other words, using their nose isn't a luxury. It's part of how their brain was designed to flourish. So when we gently tug the leash because we're in a hurry, something unexpected happens. We're not only shortening the walk, we're interrupting a conversation. A conversation between our dog and the world around them. Of course, life doesn't always allow endless strolls. There are mornings filled with appointments, children waiting for school, meetings that cannot be missed. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Because sometimes an extra 30 seconds beside a single tree means more to your dog than another 5 minutes of walking without stopping. Isn't that true for people as well? We all long for someone who doesn't rush us before we finished expressing what's in our heart. Dogs may never ask for that with words, but they ask for it every time they pause to read the invisible stories written across the ground. Love doesn't always move faster. Sometimes love waits. There's another quiet gift your dog longs for, and it has nothing to do with treats, commands, or perfectly timed training sessions. It begins the moment you stop asking them to perform. Try remembering the last time you simply sat on the floor beside your dog. Not because you wanted a photo, not because you were practicing obedience, not because you expected cuddles, just because you wanted to share the same space. Something subtle happens when we lower ourselves to their level. The room feels different. The conversation changes. Without saying a word, you're communicating something powerful. I'm here, and I don't need anything from you. Research on the bond between dogs and their owners has shown that calm, unhurried time spent together strengthens attachment in ways that constant commands and structured interactions cannot. Dogs develop trust not only through guidance, but through peaceful companionship. They notice the difference. They know when your attention comes with expectations, and they know when your attention is simply a gift. Think about the people who've made you feel safest throughout your life. Chances are, it wasn't because they always had the perfect advice. It was because they stayed. They listened. They remained close even when there was nothing to fix. Dogs recognize that same kind of presence. Maybe that's why some of the most meaningful moments you'll ever share happen in complete silence. No commands, no agenda, no reward. Just two hearts resting in the same quiet space. Perhaps there is something deeply sacred about that. Before God speaks throughout Scripture, there is often stillness. Before understanding comes presence. Maybe that's because presence prepares the heart to receive what words alone never can. Presence heals places that words never reach. Then there is the language your hands speak. Most of us touch our dogs dozens of times each day without giving it much thought. A quick pat as we pass by, a few playful scratches before leaving the house, a brief rub behind the ears while checking our phone. Those gestures carry affection. But they don't all carry the same message. There is a difference between touching someone and helping them feel safe. Studies exploring the bond between people and dogs have shown that slow, gentle physical contact is associated with increases in oxytocin, the hormone closely connected to trust, bonding, and emotional security. Your dog doesn't experience every stroke equally. They notice your rhythm, your breathing, your tension, the intention hidden beneath your fingertips. A hurried hand can say, "I have a second." A peaceful hand says, "I'm completely here." Humans understand this instinctively. Think of an elderly person living alone who receives a gentle hand on their shoulder after weeks without meaningful contact, or someone grieving who doesn't need advice, only a quiet embrace.
The comfort isn't created by pressure. It's created by presence. Dogs understand that language without ever learning a single word. They feel the difference between affection squeezed into a busy schedule and affection that asks nothing in return. Sometimes the most healing thing you can offer isn't another game or another command. It's slowing down enough for your touch to become a place where your dog's nervous system can finally rest. Because safety has never been measured by the strength of our hands, only by the peace carried within them. The safest touch is the one that asks for nothing in return. There's one more quiet gift your dog longs for. And unlike a toy or a treat, you carry it with you everywhere you go. Your voice. Most of us underestimate what our voice means to our dogs because we assume they're only catching familiar sounds. We imagine they recognize their name, a few simple commands, perhaps the excitement in our tone before a walk. But dogs are listening more carefully than we often realize. Research exploring how dogs process human speech has shown that their brains respond not only to the words we choose, but also to the way those words are spoken. Meaning and melody travel together. A kind phrase spoken with warmth reaches them differently than the very same words delivered with frustration or distraction. That's remarkable when you stop to think about it. Because it means your dog isn't simply reacting to noise. They're listening for you. Not every sentence, not every syllable, but the emotional fingerprint your voice leaves behind. Think about your own life for a moment. Most of us can remember a voice that once made everything feel okay. Maybe it belonged to a parent who comforted us after a nightmare. A grandparent who always answered the phone with calm reassurance. Someone who is no longer here, yet whose voice still echoes in our memory whenever life feels uncertain. We don't remember every conversation. We remember how we felt while listening. Perhaps your dog experiences something beautifully similar. When you quietly tell them, it's okay. They may not understand every word, but they understand the peace carried inside your voice. They learn that your sound predicts safety, comfort, and belonging. That may be why many dogs settle down the moment they hear their owner's gentle voice after a stressful experience. It isn't magic. It's trust, built one conversation at a time. Maybe that's why speaking to your dog matters, even when you think they can't fully understand. Tell them good morning. Tell them you'll be back soon. Tell them they're doing well. Not because they need a perfect vocabulary lesson, but because your voice becomes part of the emotional landscape they call home. Perhaps God created the human voice for more than exchanging information. Perhaps He designed it to carry peace from one heart to another. Sometimes home is not a place. It's a voice. As powerful as our voices can be, there is something even more important than speaking. Listening. Not with our ears alone, but with our attention. Dogs spend their entire lives communicating without words, yet many of their quietest messages pass unnoticed. A slow lick across the nose when no food is nearby. A yawn that appears in the middle of a tense moment. Turning their head away instead of making direct eye contact. Stopping to sniff the ground for no obvious reason while someone leans over them. To us, these behaviors can seem random. To a dog, they are part of an emotional language. Behaviorists have spent years observing what are often called calming signals, subtle behaviors dogs use to reduce tension, communicate discomfort, or gently ask for more space. They're not signs of stubbornness.
They aren't acts of defiance. Very often, they're polite requests. Requests that say, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm trying to stay calm. I'm asking for a little understanding. The heartbreaking part is that many loving owners never realize a conversation is taking place. Instead, they see a behavior that needs to be corrected. The leash gets tighter, the command becomes louder, the hug lasts longer, even though the dog has already turned their head away. No one intends to ignore their dog. They're simply responding to the behavior instead of the emotion behind it. And isn't that something people do with each other as well? We become impatient with someone's silence without realizing they're hurting. We judge someone's distance without seeing their fear. We try to fix reactions before understanding the feelings that created them. Dogs experience that misunderstanding too. Imagine how different the world feels when someone notices the quiet signals before they become desperate ones. Imagine what trust begins to grow when your dog discovers they don't have to bark, pull away, or panic before they're finally understood. Every time your dog offers one of these gentle signals, perhaps they're asking a question that every living heart asks in one way or another. Can you hear me? Not hear the sound. Hear me. Trust grows wherever understanding arrives before correction. Being understood is one of love's purest forms. The final need may surprise you because it isn't about comfort at all. It's about purpose. Many of our dogs live wonderfully safe lives. Their meals arrive on time, water is always waiting, a warm bed greets them every evening. Those are beautiful gifts. But safety alone doesn't satisfy a soul that was created to explore. Every breed carries a story, written long before it entered our homes. Some were shaped to search, others to retrieve, some to guard, others to guide, herd, or patiently solve problems. Those instincts don't disappear simply because dinner now arrives in a stainless steel bowl. They're still there, quietly waiting for an opportunity to awaken. That's why simple activities like scent games, puzzle feeders, hiding treats around the house, or encouraging natural searching behaviors can be so meaningful. They don't merely keep a dog occupied, they engage the mind. Scientists studying enrichment have found that working toward a reward activates motivational systems in the brain more deeply than receiving the reward without effort. The anticipation, the discovery, the small challenge, these experiences stimulate the emotional and cognitive parts of a dog's life in healthy ways. But perhaps there's an even deeper lesson hidden there. Dogs don't simply want something to do. They want to feel capable, useful, engaged with the gifts they were created to carry. Isn't that true for us as well? Very few people dream of living a life where nothing is expected of them. We long to contribute, to create, to matter, to know that our existence leaves something meaningful behind. Maybe purpose is one of God's most generous gifts to every living creature. Not because it makes life busy, because it gives life meaning. When a dog is invited to use their natural instincts, something inside them seems to relax. Their confidence grows. Their curiosity returns. Their eyes become brighter, not because they're working harder, but because they're becoming more fully themselves. Joy grows where purpose is allowed to breathe. And now we've come back to where we began. 6 quiet needs. None of them expensive. None of them complicated. None of them requiring you to become a perfect owner. Just a little more awareness, a little more patience, a little more presence. A few extra moments to let your dog read the invisible stories written across the world. Time spent sitting beside them with nothing to accomplish. Hands that move slowly enough to say, "You're safe." A voice that carries comfort instead of hurry. Eyes that notice the quiet signals before they become cries for help. Opportunities to explore, discover, and live according to the gifts they were born with. The beautiful thing is that these aren't only the needs of dogs. If we're honest, they're the needs of human hearts too. We all want someone who listens before judging, someone who understands before correcting, someone who waits instead of rushing us, someone whose touch calms our fears, someone whose voice feels like coming home, someone who reminds us that our lives still have purpose. Perhaps that's why the bond between people and dogs feels so extraordinary. It isn't simply companionship, it's recognition. 2 different species, quietly reflecting the same emotional truths. Maybe God didn't place dogs in our lives only so we could care for them. Maybe He placed them beside us because they could teach us every single day what patient love looks like. The kind of love that notices, the kind of love that stays, the kind of love that heals without demanding anything in return. And if your dog could leave you with only one final message, perhaps it would be this: I never needed you to be perfect. I only needed to know that when I reached for your heart, you were willing to meet me there. The greatest gift your dog ever receives is not a longer life, but a life where they always felt understood. If this reminded you of someone waiting at home, or someone whose paw prints still live quietly in your heart, I hope you'll share their story. Sometimes the memories we tell become another way their love continues to comfort someone else.